My relationship with Clara lasted for 5 years. She was deeply consumed by her academic work and consistently failed to maintain a professional boundary with her male students. Whenever I expressed my frustration about it, Clara would simply frown and dismiss it, saying, "I don't want to get into a pointless argument. Let's both just take some time to cool down." She would then block my number and refuse all contact. The last time she blocked me over one of her students, I decided not to pursue her anymore. 6 months passed before she finally unblocked me, sending a condescending message asking if I had learned my lesson. My response was a formal invitation to my wedding on October 8th, with a simple note: "Come and celebrate with us." Clara's call came while I was in the middle of a fitting for my wedding tuxedo. The tailor, an older gentleman with meticulous hands, was making small adjustments, complimenting my build and remarking on my excellent taste. He mentioned that my fiancée was a truly beautiful woman, and I just smiled, not offering any words. When I stepped out from behind the heavy curtain of the dressing room, the woman who had been waiting patiently on the plush sofa quickly looked away, a blush creeping up her neck. The tailor turned to her with a warm smile and asked, "So, what do you think? How does he look?" She gave a small nod, the tips of her ears turning a shade of pink. This woman sitting on the sofa was Sophie, the person I was about to marry. I called out to her softly, "Sophie, what do you think of this one?" The tailor, sensing a private moment, discreetly excused himself, leaving us alone in the quiet showroom. "Well?" I prompted again, a gentle smile on my face. This time Sophie finally rose to her feet and nodded, looking slightly overwhelmed. She still seemed hesitant to meet my gaze directly, stammering, You look good in anything you wear." Seeing how flustered she was, I found it endearing and couldn't resist teasing her a little. "Really? But you haven't even properly looked at me yet." At that, her head snapped up, her lovely face a mask of panic. She rushed to explain herself. "I did! I was looking!" Then, feeling she had misspoken, she looked down at her feet in frustration. I couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. When Sophie heard me laughing, a shy smile broke across her own face, and she began to laugh too. The atmosphere was light and perfect, but the sudden ringing of a phone shattered the moment. Sophie handed my phone to me, and I saw the name displayed on the screen. The easy smile on my face vanished, replaced by a sudden coldness. I rejected the call without a second thought. Sophie noticed the immediate shift in my demeanor and asked cautiously, "Was that her?" I nodded, forcing another smile onto my face to reassure her. "It's nothing. Don't worry about her. Let's continue." After we had chosen our attire, Sophie and I went to have dinner at a restaurant she had carefully selected. In the middle of our meal, she excused herself and returned a few minutes later with an enormous bouquet of red roses. She nervously presented the flowers to me, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a small ring box. She got down on one knee right there in the restaurant and said, "Adam, will you marry me?" I looked at her, my expression a mixture of surprise and something more complicated. After a long, silent moment, I finally spoke. "You really didn't have to do all this, you know?" My words caused her face to fall, and she quickly explained, "Adam, I know you're only marrying me because you feel it's time to settle down, but that's not why I'm doing this. I'm completely serious about us, and I promise I'll do everything I can to win your heart." It seemed to take all of her courage to get those words out. Her entire body was trembling, but her expression was filled with a fierce determination. Something shifted inside me then. I nodded at her and said softly, "I do." Sophie's eyes instantly brightened. She clumsily slid the ring onto my finger. Then, she stood up slowly, leaned in, and I gently closed my eyes, anticipating her kiss. But just at that moment my phone began to ring again, breaking the intimate mood. Sophie jumped back as if waking from a dream, and awkwardly sat down in her chair. I glanced at the name on the screen, silenced the call once more, and muttered an apology. "It's okay. You can take her call if you need to," Sophie said suddenly. I shook my head. "It's fine. There's no need." When Sophie dropped me off at my home later that evening, my grandmother was standing at the doorway, looking out into the street for me. The moment Sophie saw her, she went over and greeted her with genuine affection. "Grandma, why are you standing out here? It's windy. You'll catch a cold." Sophie skillfully coaxed her back inside, poured her a glass of warm water, and quietly asked if she had remembered to take her medication. Then, she rolled up her sleeves, walked into the kitchen, and began to wash the dishes left in the sink. After that, she went to tidy up my grandmother's room, changed the trash, and even took a moment to fiddle with my grandmother's fussy old radio until it was working perfectly. I watched her as she did all of this, her movements so natural and unforced, without a single hint of impatience. The warm light from the overhead lamp enveloped her, making her seem to glow. I leaned against the doorframe, a smile on my face, and just watched her for a long time. It wasn't until my grandmother called my name that I snapped out of my reverie. "Adam, walk Sophie out." Sophie was leaving. I walked her to the front door. After she had put on her shoes, she unexpectedly leaned in and gave me a hug. Her embrace was warm and carried a comforting scent. "Good night," she whispered in my ear. I closed my eyes and hugged her back tightly. "Good night." After Sophie left, I helped my grandmother get to bed. When I got out of the shower, I saw a text message from Sophie. "What am I going to do? I just got home and I already miss you." My face grew warm reading her words, and my heart started to beat a little faster. I was just about to reply when the ghost from my past called again. The name I had come to detest flashed on the screen, Clara. I had been with her for 5 years. We had broken up 6 months ago. I declined the call again. I figured she probably wouldn't call back after this. Knowing Clara, she would assume I was just trying to provoke a reaction from her. Still, after a moment's hesitation, I sent her a text message. "Maybe you didn't receive the invitation I sent, so I'm officially informing you now. We are broken up. Do not contact me again." After a few minutes passed with no reply, I put her out of my mind. I turned my attention back to my phone and texted Sophie. "Well, I hope you dream about me tonight." She replied almost instantly, "I'll have to say a prayer for that." I felt a little shy and didn't reply, deciding to just go to sleep. But right before I turned off the light, a message from Clara came through. "My project is finished." Seeing those 4 words, my recently calmed heart began to churn again. It was always the same line. Every single time she had blocked me, this was how she would reach out to reconcile. There was never an apology, never an explanation, just that. Clara was a university professor, young and brilliant, with what everyone said was a limitless future. 6 years ago, it was love at first sight for me. I pursued her for a full year before she finally agreed to be my girlfriend. On the very first day we were officially a couple, she told me that her research would always be her top priority, and that she might not have much energy left over for me. At the time, I assumed she simply meant that she would be busy with her work, so I told her it was perfectly fine, that I wasn't the needy, clingy type of boyfriend. I agreed that everyone needed their personal space, but I never could have imagined that her obsession with her academic research would translate into giving special, undivided attention to her male students. There was one particular student, a young man from a wealthy family who was both good-looking and an excellent student. He had originally been a history major, but after attending one of Clara's lectures, he abruptly switched his focus to physics and became her protégé. The first time I met him was when I decided, on a whim, to bring Clara some cookies I had baked myself. Clara had a strange quirk. Whenever she was engrossed in her work, she craved sweets, claiming it made her brain function better. I had spent an entire afternoon in the kitchen, baking batch after batch to get them just right. But when I pushed open the door to her office, The scene I walked in on stopped me cold. Clara was intently adjusting some piece of lab equipment, her focus absolute, while the student, Julian, was affectionately feeding her a piece of cake. His face was flushed with adoration, and he would occasionally reach out to gently wipe a crumb from the corner of her mouth. "What are you two doing?" My voice was louder than I intended. The sudden noise startled them both. Julian jumped, quickly pulling his hand back. The piece of cake he was holding smeared across Clara's cheek, leaving a streak of white frosting. Clara looked up at me, her expression one of pure annoyance, before turning back to the student with a much softer tone. "Julian, you can go for now." He nodded. "Okay, Professor Reed." As he walked past me, he gave a polite nod, but I still managed to catch the hidden challenge in his eyes and the faint, smug curl of his lips. Julian. From that day forward, I remembered his name. Clara and I had our first real fight that day. I demanded to know why she would allow another man to feed her cake, especially given that they were in a teacher-student relationship and should maintain a professional distance. Clara looked at my furious face, calmly took off her lab gloves, carefully wiped her own face clean, and only then offered a placid explanation. "I was adjusting the equipment and my hands were full, so he was helping me. I'll be more careful next time." I felt as though I had just punched a feather pillow. Clara was so composed that it made me feel like I was the one being unreasonable. I thought she would actually be more careful, but it was as if she was completely oblivious, continuing to cross lines I thought were clear. We were together for 5 years, and Julian became her student in our 4th year. It took him only 1 year to tear us apart. He would text Clara every day, telling her about what he ate, what he did, what movies he saw, always ending his messages with a cute emoji. What I found unbearable was that Clara replied to every single message. He would text, "Professor Reed, this mango chiffon cake is amazing." Clara would reply, "Maybe I'll try it next time." He would text, "Professor Reed, you gave me a lot of papers to read. Can I just read 3 this month, please?" Clara would reply, "No." He would text, "Professor Reed, what should I prepare for the academic conference tomorrow? I'm so nervous." Clara would reply, "Don't worry, just stick with me." This would even happen when we were on dates. While I was excitedly telling her about something happening in my life, she would be completely distracted. I was telling her about a new watch I had just bought, hoping we could wear it when we went to the beach together. Clara suddenly looked up from her phone and said, "Julian just told me the power is out in the lab. I have to go check on it." In that single moment, my excitement made me feel like an absolute clown. She didn't care about my feelings or what was happening in my life, but she was worried that Julian would be scared in a dark laboratory by himself. That time, I threw something. I lost my temper completely. I told her, "If you go back there, we're done." But Clara just looked at me as if I were being completely irrational. She stood with her hands in her pockets, frowning. "You're overthinking this. We're just a teacher and a student. I'm going back because an experiment is running, and a power outage could ruin it. I need to check on the equipment. Adam, you're being unreasonable. You need to calm down. I'm not going to contact you until you've had time to think this through." Clara left without a second glance, completely ignoring the fact that I was on the verge of a breakdown. She thought I was being unreasonable. She thought that she and Julian hadn't crossed any lines. And yes, on the surface, none of Julian's messages were overtly romantic. They all seemed perfectly normal. But he was constantly inserting himself between me and Clara. A part of Clara's life was reserved for him, not for me. He was the invisible third party in our relationship, and there is no room for a third person in love. You could say he defeated me utterly without ever firing a single shot. That time, Clara blocked me for a full 2 weeks. After I had gone through agony, torment, and crippling self-doubt, she sent me a message. "My project's finished. I'm free tomorrow." That was her way of offering an olive branch. In the past, I would always swallow my pride and ask her out, and we would both tacitly pretend the fight had never happened. Clara would even make a small change, like she would stop replying to every single one of Julian's texts, only responding to the ones that were related to academics. And just like that, I would forgive her again. I told myself that Clara just didn't understand relationships, not that she didn't like me. Julian wasn't the only man who had developed a crush on Clara. In the 4 years before he came along, another male student had confessed his feelings to her directly. Clara had sternly rejected him, and then immediately posted a picture of me on her social media. I still remember the caption. 2 simple words. My boyfriend. Everyone around her knew that I existed, so I thought I could afford to be a little more patient with her. But I have to admit, Julian was far more cunning than any of her previous admirers. He wasn't fazed when Clara started to keep her distance. He was even perfectly composed in front of me. He could smile while ordering 2 coffees, handing one to me and the other to Clara. But he would make a point of saying, "Professor Reed, this is from that place you love. Your usual 2 sugars, no milk." Then he would turn to me and say, "I'm not sure what you like, sir, but you can tell me and I'll remember for next time." His smile looked sincere, but it was pure provocation. He was telling me that he knew far more about her than I did. So, of course, I couldn't help but scowl. I refused his coffee. And so, of course, he got to act hurt and offended. And, of course, Clara fought with me over him. "Adam, you went too far this time. Julian was just being nice." I didn't want to turn into a hysterical maniac in front of Julian. That would only make me lose even more spectacularly. My only option was to pretend to be angry and storm off. The feelings of injustice and resentment almost drowned me. Clara really didn't get it. But by the time I had composed myself and wanted to have a serious, calm conversation with her, I received the news. She and Julian were going abroad for a 6-month research project. Together? The paperwork had been approved. They were leaving in 3 days, and out of everyone who should have known, I was the last to find out. Clara hadn't told me. I rushed to her office again, ready to demand why she hadn't said anything. But what I saw was Clara teaching Julian how to revise his academic paper, her hand resting over his as they pointed at the screen. They were sitting so close, shoulder to shoulder. Clara was patiently correcting his mistakes, and Julian would occasionally look down and smile shyly. A handsome man and a beautiful woman. It was a picture-perfect scene. Unfortunately, an unwelcome element had just been inserted into the picture. Me. Seeing me, Julian shot to his feet in a panic. Clara just frowned in annoyance. "Adam? Professor Reed is just helping me with my paper. Please don't misunderstand. I'll leave right now." I have to admit, Julian played the part of the innocent student, startled by his teacher's overly suspicious and jealous boyfriend, perfectly. He pretended to be anxious as he walked past me, even flinching slightly. It successfully made the look in Clara's eyes even colder. I knew I should be smart, smile, and smooth things over so I wouldn't fall into his trap. But I couldn't. I was too hurt. I turned to him and said coldly, "Don't call me by my first name. We're not friends." My words made Julian's eyes well up with tears, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm sorry. I just thought it would be friendlier. I was wrong. I won't do it again." Then he ran off. Clara immediately stood up, looking concerned. Once his back disappeared through the doorway, Clara's gaze on me grew even more irritated. She rubbed her temples. "Why didn't you tell me you were going abroad with him, alone, for 6 months?" I blurted out, desperate for an answer. Clara's eyes were full of mockery. "Doesn't the scene you just made explain why? Adam, you're hopeless." Her words made me tremble. I couldn't hold back the hurt anymore. I slammed my bag on the floor, my voice hoarse. "You say I'm hopeless, but who pushed me to be this way, Clara? Do you really not get it? Are you really that innocent? Is he—" I screamed the last few sentences, my eyes instantly turning red. Clara just looked at me. No words, no movement, just pure impatience on her face. She was as calm as if I were a complete stranger. My struggles, my resentment, my pain, my outrage, she couldn't see it, couldn't understand it. Or maybe she just didn't want to. And so, she delivered her cold judgment. I don't want to have a pointless argument. Let's both just cool down. From that day on, she blocked all of my contacts and got on a plane with Julian. And in that moment, my heart turned to ash. I didn't want to fight for this relationship anymore. Clara's calmness made me feel like a madman. I didn't want to be a madman anymore, and I certainly didn't want to be a clown. I forced myself to give up on her. But now she had popped back up, acting as if nothing had ever happened, using that same old line as if she could just drag me back into those miserable days. A surge of anger rose in me. What right did she have? What gave you the right, Clara, to think you could just drop me and pick me up whenever you felt like it? So I sent her my wedding invitation. October 8th. Come celebrate with us. Once I had calmed down, I realized I had been impulsive. This would probably just make her think I was trying to spite her. And, as expected, Clara didn't reply. I laughed at myself, blocked her number, and decided that we would never speak or see each other again. It was for the best. My life is good now. Another week passed. It was Saturday, and I was going with Sophie to taste the food for our wedding reception. When I found Sophie, she was still at work. She was skillfully turning over an elderly patient, gently washing their face, and patiently coaxing them to take their medicine and go to sleep. Her expression was incredibly gentle, her movements delicate and caring. When she finished and looked up, she saw me standing there, smiling at her. Sophie's eyes immediately lit up. She walked over, quietly and naturally taking my hands in hers. "How long have you been waiting here? Why didn't you call me?" "Because it was too beautiful a scene to interrupt. My fiancé is like an angel," I teased with a smile. My words made Sophie blush. She pleaded softly. "Adam? Okay, I'll stop teasing. Go get changed. I'll wait for you here." I waved her off to change out of her uniform. Sophie nodded, her face full of a charming reluctance to leave. "Wait for me then." After she changed, we drove to the hotel we had booked. Today was for tasting the wedding menu. After each course was served, Sophie would ask for my opinion first. If I nodded in approval, she would agree without any objection. She was also secretly jotting something down on her phone. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. When she wasn't looking, I grabbed her phone and saw that she was making a detailed list of my favorite foods. Sophie was a bit stunned when I snatched her phone away. When she realized what had happened, she frantically tried to get it back. "Adam, don't look!" The more she said it, the more curious I became. I scrolled up and was shocked. It was a list of things all about me, page after page. The title was Everything About Adam. Seeing that I had already read it, Sophie stopped struggling. She looked at me nervously. "Adam, I didn't mean any harm by writing this. I just wanted to get to know you better. Do you mind? If you do, I'll delete it right now." Seeing her anxious expression, I deliberately frowned. "You got something wrong here. I don't like tofu." "Oh, I'll delete it right away," Sophie said, panicked, trying to get her phone back. I gently held her hand, a smile playing on my lips. "What I mean is, if you want to know anything about me, you can just ask. And I'd like to get to know you better, too." When Sophie understood what I was really saying, she became flustered with excitement. "Adam, are you saying—" "I'm starting to like you," I finished for her, my expression serious and sincere. After I said that, Sophie just seemed dazed. For the rest of the food tasting, she just stared at me, her mind clearly not on the food at all. She was still in a bit of a fog when I led her out of the private dining room. After we had taken a few steps, she quietly laced her fingers with mine and started smiling to herself. I was smiling too. We felt like a couple of middle schoolers on their first date, holding hands tightly, but almost afraid to look at each other. We walked hand in hand like that all the way to the hotel entrance, until someone suddenly called my name. "Adam!" A person blocked our path. Clara was staring at our intertwined hands, her face dark and unreadable. Sophie snapped to attention and instinctively stepped in front of me. "Adam, who is this?" "Adam, I need to tell you that we never broke up. What you're doing right now is cheating," Clara cut her off, speaking rapidly. Hearing her words, my face went cold. I took a step forward, positioning myself in front of Sophie. "Clara, I already told you we're done. It ended the day you blocked me and left the country. I left you a voicemail. You can go back and check if you don't believe me. Besides, this is my fiancée, Sophie. We've met each other's families. It's official. There's nothing left for you and me to talk about." I tried to lead Sophie past her, but she grabbed my wrist. "Ma'am, please let go of my fiancé," Sophie said firmly. Clara ignored her, muttering, "I didn't agree." I struggled to break free. "Let go of me, Clara." She suddenly pulled me closer, looked me directly in the eyes, and said word for word, "I didn't agree to break up with you." Sometime during all this, Clara's eyes had turned red. Looking closely, she seemed a bit haggard. I was stunned. Clara could actually cry. "Adam, She tried to say more, but Sophie pried her hand off me. I quickly hid behind Sophie, watching Clara warily. "If you do that to Adam again, I'm calling the police." Sophie's gentle voice had turned firm. "Sophie, let's go. I don't want to see her," I whispered. Sophie turned, put her arm around my shoulders, and guided me away. But I could feel that intense gaze following us like a shadow. After we left the hotel, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I didn't know why Clara had suddenly shown up, or what she was trying to accomplish with that scene. I kicked at a pebble on the ground in frustration. Sophie suddenly handed me a warm milk tea. It was only then that I realized I had been completely ignoring her. "I'm so sorry about today. I really am," I said, my face full of apology. But Sophie just replied, gently, "You don't have to apologize. It's not your fault." Sophie sat down next to me on a nearby bench, and we looked up at the moon together. "But Adam, she seems really impressive." Sophie's voice was tinged with sadness. Hearing that, I immediately turned to look at her. Sure enough, Sophie's eyes were darting away, her face showing a hint of frustration and self-doubt. I knew her insecurity was creeping back in. I sighed internally. "She is impressive. That's why I'm not good enough for her," I said deliberately. Sophie immediately got anxious. No, you're absolutely good enough for her. You have no idea how good and amazing you are." Hearing her eager defense of me, I burst out laughing. Sophie realized what was happening, and her face slowly turned red. "Looks like you really like me." Sophie lowered her head, the tips of her ears bright red. After a long moment, she let out a soft, "Mm-hmm." "What I wanted to say is, yes, she's impressive, but she's definitely not right for me. You saw it today. She never considers my feelings. She would never sit patiently with me, watch the moon, and listen to me vent like you do. I don't care what other people think. In my eyes, you're better than she is. And I'm so happy that you're the one who will be with me in the future." After I said that, I held out my pinky finger and hooked it with hers. Sophie's face turned an even deeper shade of red. She still didn't dare to look up at me, but she quietly tightened her finger around mine. Neither of us spoke again. The moonlight fell quietly on us. Sophie dropped me off downstairs. Before she left, she gave me her customary hug, and I peacefully enjoyed the warmth of her embrace. After a moment, Sophie reluctantly let go. I told her to go ahead, but she insisted on watching me go upstairs. Finally, I had to put on a stern face and pretend to be angry before she agreed to leave. But she had only taken 2 steps when I suddenly pulled her back and planted a firm kiss on her cheek. Sophie was completely stunned. I gently pushed her away and said with a smile, "Goodbye." When Sophie came to her senses, she was so flustered she didn't know what to do with her hands. She started to move toward me again, I held back a laugh, shook my head, and waved at her. So she had no choice but to walk away, looking back every few steps. After she left, I clutched my pounding heart and walked back toward my building with a sweet smile on my face, but as I stepped into the building's hallway, a slender figure lunged out from the darkness. "You kissed her?" The sound-activated light flickered on, revealing Clara's furious face right in front of mine. I jumped back, startled. Realizing it was her, I put on a cold expression and tried to walk past her. Clara grabbed my wrist again. I'd lost my patience. I turned back, frowning. "What the hell do you want?" "We haven't broken up, Adam. You can't kiss her." Clara's face actually showed a flicker of hurt. I forcefully shook her hand off, my voice icy. "Who I kiss is none of your business. I am telling you again, seriously and formally, we broke up 6 months ago. I have nothing to do with you." "I didn't agree," Clara said, her voice hoarse. "Adam, I didn't agree. You can't do this to me." Her words ignited a fury in me. Clara was painting herself as the victim, just like all the times before when she drove me crazy and then acted like nothing had happened. "Then how should I treat you? Let you keep blocking me, giving me the silent treatment? Keep watching you and Julian get all cozy and cross every line? And then, when you're in a better mood, come running back to kiss your ass? Clara, you are a complete and utter asshole." I finally said it all. The anger I'd been holding in was finally released. "But I didn't do anything. There was nothing between me and Julian. We were just a teacher and a student. Adam, you're the one who made assumptions about our relationship. You misunderstood." Clara was still trying to defend herself. I laughed mockingly. "Teacher and student? The kind that texts at 2 a.m? The kind that shares a piece of cake? Or the kind that gives each other chocolates on Valentine's Day?" "You're right, Clara, you didn't do anything, because you knew exactly what was happening. You enjoyed being pampered and taken care of, especially when it was by a handsome young student. How despicable can you be, Clara? You make me sick." Clara's face flushed red. The mouth that could talk endlessly about her research was now unable to form a single coherent word. "I don't want to see you again. Stay out of my sight." I turned my back on her, unwilling to say another word. The moment I stepped into my apartment, the light in the hallway behind me went out. After that night, Clara disappeared. I thought she had finally given up, but I never expected that a week later she would find me again, in the coffee shop. I looked at the stern-faced Clara, feeling nothing but annoyance. Before she could speak, I went on the offensive. "You said this was the last time that you wouldn't bother me again." Clara nodded. "Go on. What else is there?" Clara took a laptop out of her bag, opened it, and pulled up a document. Then she said, "I don't think she's good enough for you." I looked up at her in disbelief. Clara began speaking in a dead serious tone. "I did some research on this Sophie woman. Her job is mediocre, her looks are average, and her abilities are completely unremarkable. She doesn't deserve you. In here, I've listed detailed reasons why. Once you read it, you'll understand that you two are not a good match. As for you being bothered by my relationship with Julian, I can make a new promise. I will no longer have any contact with him that goes beyond a professional teacher-student relationship. So, what I'm trying to say is, you should cut your losses. Call off the wedding with her and get back together with me." Clara said it all so matter-of-factly. I slammed her laptop shut. My voice was shaking with uncontrollable emotion. "Are you insane? What gives you the right to investigate Sophie and pass judgment on her?" Clara's tone also became urgent. "Because I don't understand. I didn't do anything wrong, so why should I lose to her? Adam, why are you so fixated on these little details? I've told you before, I'm absorbed in my research, so I tend to overlook these small things in daily life. Julian is just my student. It just so happens that he's a guy. Adam, how long are you going to hold this grudge? I know you just want to see me grovel like this, but my patience has its limits. Did you think I didn't find out you've only known her for 3 months? If you wanted to find someone to make me jealous, you could have at least picked someone better than me. A woman as plain as Sophie is no threat to me." Hearing Clara belittle Sophie so ruthlessly, I couldn't hold back any longer. I stood up and threw my coffee in her face. Clara ducked her head, humiliated. The coffee dripped down onto her expensive blazer, staining a large patch. She looked up at me in disbelief. My voice was distorted with anger. "What gives you the right to talk about her like that? Clara, you are truly hopeless. You still think this is just some ploy to get your attention? You want to know why it's Sophie? Fine, I'll tell you exactly why. 3 months ago, I tried to reach you." I paused, taking a moment to calm myself, trying to get the words out clearly. 3 months ago, my grandma suddenly fell at home. A neighbor found her and took her to the hospital. At the time, I was still a complete mess because of you. When I got the news, I rushed to the hospital. Because of her age, the fall was serious. That night, the hospital issued 3 critical condition notices. My hand was shaking so much I could barely sign the surgery consent forms. I looked at Clara. "You know how much my grandma means to me." Clara silently lowered her head. Of course she knew. My parents died in an accident when I was young. I grew up with my grandma. She put me through school, college, and grad school so I could get a good job, and even find what seemed like a brilliant girlfriend. I glanced at her and continued. That night, in front of the operating room, I was scared to death. I didn't know who to call, who I could possibly turn to. And in that moment, I thought of you. My voice softened. But Clara, I tried every possible way to contact you. I called so many of your friends, but you never called me back. They told me you'd hang up the second you heard my name. Clara's expression began to turn ugly. She opened her mouth anxiously, trying to say something. I cut her off. I even begged the one person I never wanted to ask for help. Clara realized who I meant, and her face went pale. I ignored her and finished my sentence. But he told me you didn't want to be disturbed by me, so there was nothing he could do. Clara, while I was having sleepless nights on my knees on the cold hospital floor, begging God not to take my grandma, what were you doing? I let out a sarcastic laugh, my voice hardening. You were at a museum with your precious student. I still remember the caption on Julian's social media post. He was smiling brightly at the camera, with the beautiful profile of you in the background. Yay, no more academic grunt work today. Professor Reed is the best. That night, I cried until I had no tears left, and Julian was smiling so happily. So, Clara, do you want me to keep going? Clara's usually placid face was finally showing signs of panic. Adam, I didn't know. My grandma is tough, and she pulled through. And do you know what the first thing she said to me was when she opened her eyes? Clara looked up at me, her eyes red and unblinking. She said she was sorry for making me worry. My nose stung, remembering my grandma lying in that hospital bed, her face pale, her life fading, her weak voice calling to me again and again. Adam, don't be scared. Grandma knew I had a girlfriend, but that day she looked around, and all she saw was her little grandson, alone by her bedside, his eyes red from crying. So she said to me, Adam, Grandma isn't trying to force you to get married, but I just can't rest easy about you. So she wanted to see you, but I couldn't find you. When I was struggling alone at the hospital, where were you? When I couldn't leave my grandma's side for a second and couldn't even get a hot meal, where were you? I questioned her, one blow after another. Stop it, Clara said, her face twisted in pain. I ignored her and continued. That's when Sophie appeared. She was professional, gentle, and reassuring. She would expertly clean Grandma, handle her bedpan, massage her, and coax her to take her medicine and cheer her up. It's no exaggeration to say that she saved me. So, Clara, you owe her an apology. Sophie is a professional, responsible, and outstanding caregiver. After hearing all this, Clara just crumbled. She knew there was no chance for us anymore. I'm sorry, Adam, she said. I'm so sorry. I grabbed my bag from the chair and turned to leave. I hope you won't bother me again. That wedding invitation was impulsive. This is where it ends for us, Clara. As I walked out of the coffee shop, Sophie was leaning against her car, not far away, waving at me. I had told her I was going to meet Clara. Sophie is gentle and thoughtful, but also reserved and sensitive. I didn't want her to torture herself over Clara. Seeing her, I immediately put on a smile. I naturally took her hand, our wedding rings glinting in the sun. Did you clear things up with her? I nodded. Sophie immediately hugged me, patting my back comfortingly. That must have been hard for you. I hugged her back. It was hard for you, too. After we got in the car, I saw Clara suddenly run out of the shop. Sophie muttered under her breath, "Why won't she just give up?" But she still turned to me and asked, "Is there anything else you need to say to her?" Seeing her jealous expression, my lips curled into a smile. "You can just tell me if you don't want me to see her, Sophie." "Really?" Sophie's eyes sparkled. "Really?" I leaned in and whispered in her ear, "Of course. For example, right now you should just slam on the gas and go." Sophie immediately started the car, successfully leaving Clara behind. In the rearview mirror, Clara stood there, looking lost, until she was just a speck, and then she was gone. I turned to look out the window. It was finally over. After that day, I thought I would never see Clara again, but on my wedding day, she came. She had lost a lot of weight in just 2 weeks, her face pale and haggard. One of her friends came to persuade me to get back together with her, telling me that Clara was in serious trouble. Julian had been caught for academic fraud and plagiarism. He had also bribed the dean to pass his entrance interview to become Clara's student. All of Julian's papers were either ghostwritten or plagiarized. He had been caught by an original author when submitting a paper, and that author's advisor was a huge name in the field who wanted to pursue the matter to the fullest extent. As his advisor, Clara was being held responsible and had been suspended from her position. Julian was expelled, the dean was arrested, and if things went badly, Julian could even face prison time. I never expected her to come, especially with all that going on. I didn't let her distract me. I held the bouquet and walked step by step toward Sophie, who had been waiting for so long. Sophie had a faint, beautiful smile on her face and eagerly took my hand. During her vows, her eyes filled with tears. I smiled and wiped them away for her. Sophie spoke through her sobs. "Adam, you've always been curious about when I fell for you. The truth is, I met you once, 3 years ago, when I was still an intern at the hospital. I was being harassed. A patient's family was yelling at me, saying, what could a young girl like me do? Was I just trying to be lazy? I even got pushed around during the argument. That day, I felt so defeated. I was crying by myself when you showed up. You told me it was okay and that there's no such thing as a low-status job. You said my work was important and helped a lot of people. Later, when I saw you again, I thought you were so strong, handling everything at the hospital by yourself for so long. Even though you were my employer, you were always worried I was getting tired and always spoke to me with a smile. Adam, you are the best and most wonderful man I've ever met. I know I'm not good enough yet, but I will try harder and harder to make you happy." Hearing her words, I couldn't help my own eyes from turning red. We kissed, both of us in tears, to thunderous applause. No one noticed that Clara had quietly slipped away. After changing for the reception, I was heading back to the main hall when Clara suddenly blocked my path. Her voice was bitter. "Congratulations on your wedding. You look so handsome in a tux." I gave a polite nod and tried to walk around her. "Adam, I'm sorry." My steps faltered. "You were right. I knew everything. I wasn't innocent. I used the excuse of being a teacher to enjoy the thrill of another man's attention. So I got what I deserved. This is my karma. Adam, I know nothing I say now will change anything, but I still want to tell you. I've only ever loved you. My heart never strayed." Hearing that, I just felt disgusted. How could Clara still say something like that with a straight face? It was terrifying. Her heart never strayed, but her actions constantly did. "Clara, Playing the victim and faking deep feelings doesn't change the fact that you're an asshole. You'll owe me for this for the rest of your life. Don't even think about asking for forgiveness." I delivered my final verdict in a cold, unforgiving tone. Then I turned and walked away without looking back, toward my happy ending. Another Valentine's Day came and went. Clara sat alone in her office. The sun was bright outside, but her heart was in a free fall. After the incident with Julian, she was demoted to a lecturer and could no longer advise students, but she knew it was what she deserved. Adam was right. She was an asshole, unworthy of forgiveness. Clara took out her phone and scrolled through Adam's social media. He had posted a video, making chocolates for Sophie. She watched as Adam, his face full of happiness, carefully made one chocolate after another. In the video, he gave a mischievous wink, just like he had smiled at her countless times before. "I'm putting wasabi in this one to mess with Sophie." In a daze, she remembered the first time Adam had baked a cake for her. He had secretly put chili in it, and her face had turned bright red from the spice. He had laughed and taken an embarrassing photo of her, while she tried to snatch the phone away. Adam had said with a grin, "Nope. This is priceless blackmail material on the one and only Professor Reed." She had laughed and asked him what she could do to earn his mercy. He had brought his face close to hers. "Simple. Let me kiss you 20 times, and I'll let you off the hook." His bright, handsome face had captivated her back then, but later someone even brighter and more handsome came along. Her heart had wavered, just a little. The rational part of her brain warned her that she was crossing a line, but deep down she felt it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like she would actually do anything, and so, on that Valentine's Day, she had accepted Julian's chocolates. It wasn't that she didn't know what it meant, but she told herself it was just a piece of chocolate, just a slice of cake, just a text back. It was nothing. None of it meant anything. When Adam got upset, it was because he was being immature, because he was being unreasonable. She would just give him the cold shoulder for a while, and it would all go back to normal. But she had forgotten that when a third person gets involved in a relationship, cracks begin to form. And when those cracks get bigger and bigger, the relationship shatters. That's why he had left so decisively, without a single look back, and put on a tuxedo to marry someone else. A sudden bitterness filled Clara's heart, so bitter it made her eyes burn. She suddenly thought of the cookies from that afternoon so long ago, the ones she never got to eat. What did they taste like? Clara would never know.